Okay. So I've added the sunglasses specifically so you don't see me just staring at the screen down there rather than the camera, which I should be looking at is the camera. That's what I should be looking at. But instead, you're gonna see my lenses, and I'm gonna read you stories. I'm gonna have to raise this up just a hair. Get that just right. Is there too much of a void on this side? Should I move it over this way a little bit? Something like that? Yeah? Okay, we're gonna do that. Here we go. This one's got rewards. I saw one I liked earlier about a Catholic priest, but let's see, 21 hours ago. See, the amount of hours and the amount of likes is important. If we have a lot of likes in very few hours, we know it's got to be a good one. All right. Let's see. I think I'll just do... I went urban exploring. Nah, too many quotes. I wish I had a chat to be like, oh, we like this story or that. Okay, here's the first one. Are we ready? Is everybody ready? This one's name is If Your Phone Loses Service and Your GPS Reroutes You, Turn It Off. This is posted by Let's Split Up on r/no sleep. Let's-split-up. And it was 24 days ago. By today, right now, I mean, you'll be able to see what day this is posted. It's like, what is the date? Jesus. What month is this? I think we're still in November. I think it's like November 24th, 25th, something like that. Either way, let's go ahead and get started here from the beginning. If your phone loses service and your GPS reroutes you, turn it off. Don't get me wrong. I love using GPS. Saves me time when there's traffic or unexpected construction, but it can be dangerous if it takes you the wrong place at the wrong time. A shortcut through a bad part of the city at night, or a shortcut along a gravel road where your tire gets punctured and suddenly you're there for hours waiting for a tow, or worse. These are places we aren't meant to go. Last night, my fiance, Rav, okay, and I were on a road trip to visit family. Our trip took us through northern Appalachia. What is with Appalachia in the stories these days? I have to say, it's like the biggest thing ever. Like Appalachia. I can't scroll no sleep without seeing like 5 titles involving Appalachia. Appalachia? I don't know. And our phone service kept cutting in and out. When we hit construction, our pace slowed to a crawl. The GPS ordered a faster route, so we took it. But soon, we were winding through wooded hills and lost all service. My map was still active, sort of, but no longer giving directions. It just showed the route we had with a colored line. The sun was lowering in the sky, and I couldn't zoom to see where we were. We also hadn't seen signs for any kind of gas stations where I could ask people for directions. This, grumbled Rav, this is why you shouldn't rely on GPS, Ricardo. He only ever called me Ricardo when he was upset, a habit he borrowed from my mom. I was always Rick until I was in trouble. So it's Rick and Rav? Okay. Rick and Rav. So Rick is our narrator. Okay. He was also never willing to be the one to drive. And I said, okay, well, if you want to fill my car with maps from Minnesota to Long Island. I guess we could kill some trees and go the old-fashioned route. We can just map out the route in advance and print the sections we need. Oh, so like MapQuest? Back to the technological superiority of the 90s, I snarked. While we bickered, suddenly the phone's screen went out and then flickered back on. This GPS was working again. Hallelujah! I thanked the universe as it began recalculating to our route. And what did I say? I didn't say route or route. To our route. And my spirits lightened, even as the sky was getting darker. Rev never lets things go, though, and I was still grumbling about how I shouldn't rely on my phone, how I should look with my own eyes and learn the roads. If you depend on GPS, you stop learning to keep track of directions. You stop noticing things like that. Oh, sorry. If you depend on GPS, you stop learning to keep track of directions. He has a grumbly voice. You stop noticing. Haven't we already passed these signs? I hadn't been paying enough attention to notice, and only barely caught a glimpse of a sign for falling rocks. It also followed up with another sign for bears. I swear we drove by here half an hour ago. Maybe we did. We were lost before. Now it's got the route, which is this way. Okay, honestly, I think our narrator's a little stupid. If your driver, who's actually the one paying attention to the road, is like, hey, guess what, dude? I feel like I'm looping around. I'm seeing the same shit over and over here. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going on, but I've seen these same two signs at least 2 or 3 times. This is cause for concern, right? This is the point where I'd be like, "Oh, hey, sorry, my partner. Shit, this is odd." And the route just seems to be, I don't know. I mean, what does it look like on the route? It just shows a blue line, it says, but does it just seem like they're going straight? I mean, you would assume they'd have to be going in a circle or something. You know what I mean? Let me get a drink. Either way, very strange. Okay, here we go. But it's taking us. Okay, so we got the route back. He just said we got the route back. But it's taking us further and further into the hills and away from the highway. I zoomed out and looked at the larger map. Maybe this is a shortcut to get further along ahead of the traffic? Rav fell quiet, and we put on some music. Beneath the stereo, something didn't feel quite right. It was hard for me to pinpoint. On the surface, everything was fine, and I figured maybe my uneasy feeling was because this was an unfamiliar route, and we were both crabby and tired. We'd been in the car all day. I sped up as the sun vanished behind the hills and the sky turned fiery red. I'd fallen into the zone, like I always tend to do when driving long distances. When the roads are long, empty stretches, I don't need to concentrate like in city traffic. I sort of just let instinct take over, and my mind wanders. I just drove, just lazily watching my GPS, and the line on the GPS marking the road. The road ran on endlessly ahead. I saw on the map where it curved up ahead, the road began to turn. Hey Rick, slow down. Or hey Rick, slow down. He's Rav. Rav has the deeper voice. Sorry. We got to remember Rav has the deeper voice and Rick has the higher pitched voice. Rick's voice is more like mine because he's the narrator and he's describing things and I don't want to have to change my voice too much. So we got Rav. He's like, "Oh, what's up?" We get that. Okay. At Rav's shout, I slammed the brakes, swerving because the curve came on faster than I expected. I looked at the GPS and it was zoomed in. And when I zoomed out, it showed how tight the curve was. There had been some lag. Rav was clinging to the handle above the door. He glared my way, and I muttered an apology and drove more carefully. I'm usually a pretty reliable driver. The GPS being laggy had caught me off guard. Rav lowered and said, "That thing is going to get us killed." More long stretches of silence, and the sky deepening as the first stars became visible. There was still a fair bit of light, but even so, I turned on my headlights. I was still following the long line of the GPS when suddenly Rav was screaming, "Stop! Stop!" I hadn't seen anything on the road, but his panic set my foot shooting to the brake, and we skidded and I yanked to the wheel, hopefully bringing us to the side of the road. Oh, the hill. The side of the hill. My bad. Whoa, geez. He was gasping, and I looked ahead to where the road went over to the bridge. It took me a moment to see clearly what Rav had seen. A few feet out, the bridge was broken. Nothing but the drop below. Rav and I got out and walked over to the bridge and stepped across remnants of a barricade. I need to have larger text. We're going to pause it for just a second here. I'm going to see if I can enlarge text because actually my laptop is a little further away. Can I open it in reading mode? Whoa. Oh, we already went to comment section. What? Okay, there we go. I hadn't seen anything in the road, but his panic sent my foot shooting to the brake, and we skidded, and I yanked the wheel to bring us into the side of the hill. He was gasping, and I looked ahead to where the road went over a bridge. It took me a moment to see clearly what Rav had seen. A few feet out, the bridge was broken. Nothing but the drop below. Rav and I got out and walked over to the bridge and stepped across the remnants of a barricade. It must have been set up to warn vehicles about the bridge being the fuck out. Road work ahead, I sure hope it does. But now it was in pieces, flattened and broken, driving at speed. You'd never see the shattered pieces in time. Rav's eagle eyes had saved our lives. We stepped past the barricade. "Careful," muttered Rav as I moved to the edge of the bridge and looked down. Cars lay piled below, and what looked like a body spilled out of one of the vehiculars. Is it one of the vehicles? Wait, hold on. Yeah. A body just fell out of one of the cars. Like my brain just tuned out. Like I was just avoiding the trauma all of a sudden. That's why the barricade was broken. Not just one, but multiple vehicles had smashed through it. Chilled, I backed away from the drop. The pair of us picked our way back over the shattered barricade and along the road. We were almost at our vehicle when headlights blinded us. A truck barreled towards us. I grabbed Rav and flung him with me into the hillside as the scream of a horn shot past us, the truck driver laying it on. And then the wheels clacked over the broken barricade and the horn faded out into nothingness as the truck went over. There was a horrible metallic crunching as it crashed and rolled far below. My head was bleeding from hitting a rock as we slammed into the hill. But luckily, neither of us were seriously injured. We hurried into the car, stopping ourselves and quickly pulling a 3-point turn and driving away. You didn't call any authorities or anything? I guess they don't have service because they're out in the middle of nowhere. That's my assumption here. Right? Finally, we caught a glimpse of a sign for gas and followed until we reached the station, where we called police to report the broken bridge. Okay, yeah, see, they call police once they actually get to the station. So it seems like out there they didn't have the service to actually do what they needed to do. Suddenly, after rebooting the phone, I had signal again. The map is showing a totally different route. Oh, wow. So the route was different previously. That was pretty good. Oh, I would upvote, but I'm not logged in. That's okay. I don't want y'all to have my profile. That was really good. I liked that one. How do we feel, everybody? That was if your phone loses services and your GPS reroutes it, turn it off. That was a pretty good one, I would say. We'll see how long we've been live and stuff. Oh, you know what I realized? I wasn't sharing screen the whole time. I was trying to give you a read along, but we didn't have that. We've only been up for 15 minutes though. So I think we've got time for another story. However, I've got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Background music. I don't know. Fuck, I'll be right back. All right. Okie dokie, okie dokie. Okay, thank you for waiting very much. I appreciate that. I just want to say that story, it was pretty good. I think everybody heard how the story played out. We had a couple, they just kind of went to well, they were heading somewhere, and then they went to the side of some road and noticed that the bridge had gone out. People were just driving off of the bridge. However, I will say it's a little eerie. We didn't have the GPS working properly. I would give that one maybe like a 5 or 6 out of 10. For me, there was just like a not enough visuals, not enough like immersive aspects for me to just get really lulled in and like pulled into the story the way that I generally would. But we've still got time. We're gonna go for another one here and see what we can do. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and start screen sharing so you guys can actually see what's going on here while I do this. I don't think I need to share system audio or anything. All right, we're moving. Let's see. What are we thinking? Something in the beach is biting people in the butt. Stray cat in grief. We just read the phone services one. Another Appalachian Mountains one. Creepy stories around the campfire. You know, I'm going to go ahead and cut to the chase and read this one. Let's see how long she is. Yeah, this will be a good, nice and long one. Oh, I don't need that. That freaked me out. Did you hear that? I just want to have the text up in a larger form. Hide. X. I'll just read it like this. Okay. We used to share creepy stories around the campfire. The last one I heard might have ruined my life. I wish I could just cut straight to the chase, but I feel like I should at the very least make an attempt to include some sort of context. Otherwise, what's the point? I'll try my best to keep it brief. During my college years, our core group of friends made it an annual tradition to go out camping for a few days at a time. Not very original, I know, but it was mostly just an excuse to hang out away from everyone and everything else. We weren't nature enthusiasts or anything of the sort, but it's something we didn't mind doing as a group. The roster wasn't always the same every single year. Exes would come and go, exam or personal matters would keep some of us from joining, and sometimes trivial arguments also resulted in a few faces being a no show. And yet, somehow, a handful of us always managed to pull through. Brenda, Michael, and Lillian, who've been together for as long as I can remember, Dennis, Margot, and myself. It definitely became harder to schedule things once we all graduated, but we made it work. The only thing that managed to mess up our annual camping streak was the pandemic from a few years ago. And after that, it sort of became easier for people to come up with excuses for not being able to make it. We still chatted semi regularly and hung out from time to time, but that was it. But this year, it was different. Either the stars aligned themselves, or maybe we'd gotten all to a point in our adult lives where we were starting to feel some serious nostalgia for some simpler times that are not that far back in the past, even though there are days where it definitely feels like it. Okay, so I mean, first off, let me just say, like, the vibes I'm getting, we've got just this group. I guess like they must have been like a college group or something originally. I don't know if they knew each other prior to college, but I would just assume they were already a friend group at that point. A lot of people in college like that. They start going out camping, hanging out. They build a little tradition. That tradition fades away, but now they're getting a little older. Some people are graduating, and they decide to just go for it. Everybody's going in, and it's just a magical experience. Everybody's just so happy to see each other. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Um, so yeah, that was funny. Not really. So let's see. Give me just a second. I know where we're at. I got it highlighted. Let me get a drink. Man, over here it's such a nice cloudy day for this stuff. I am relaxing. I'm sitting back. Figured out how to get my softbox running properly. It feels good. Okay, here we go, y'all. So, the six of us marked down the dates on our calendars, and we made it happen. 2 days, 2 nights. Seems simple enough, just as it used to be. We never really pre-planned any special activities unless there were some specific points of interest near the area worth checking out or whatever. But one thing we always did was tell scary stories around the campfire in the first night. Sometimes during the second night as well, if some of us were feeling particularly inspired, whether alcohol played a part in it or not. I'll leave that to your imagination. To be honest, I don't think any of us ever really managed to truly scare anyone with our stories. Some of us, myself included, would try really hard, but more often than not, we thought what we thought was scary turned out to be just an uneven mix of funny, illogical, and campy elements, poorly strewn together. Light on goosebumps, but great for laughs, which wasn't all that bad. This year, it was different. And as you might have guessed from the title of this post, I'm currently typing all this out due to what happened on that first night. But before I get into it, there's one more thing I need to mention. As far as I, Brenda, Michael, Lillian, and Margot were concerned, this trip had been planned with only 6 people in mind. But when Dennis finally rolled up to our meeting spot late as usual, we were all taken aback by the fact that he had brought one extra person with him. Someone he had never mentioned in passing to anyone, and who, by the looks of it, was apparently tagging along for the entirety of our get-together in the woods. Her name was Liz. Okay, so immediately, just off the bat here, I really like that. I do enjoy that. We've got like a new character just thrown into the mix. We had this group. They all knew each other. They're very comfortable with each other. And then there's like this immediate version of discomfort. Like you have a form of discomfort start to develop here because, oh, there's somebody new. And this was our trip all this time. Like we used to all do all this together. It just kind of, it takes what was the norm and just puts it in a new shade or a new color that was already, you know, it was already dwindling down. It was a fading color, and it's just now back. It's just now vibrant, and now it's taken on a new shade. That is a very weird, weird way to put that. I will admit. Um, but I would say, I mean, here I'm just gonna call it here. I think this Liz person is gonna tell the story that's gonna cause this whole like trauma. I think that's what's gonna happen. I don't even have a question about that, honestly. Have not read the story yet, I can confirm. Now, if this had happened during our college years, I can imagine how this could have been a lot more awkward. Having a random person intruding in our group and potentially ruining the solid pre-established dynamic between us. That's what I'm saying. It's like a new person, but that's true. You're adults. You're all adults. That's true. That says, but we're not kids anymore. And importantly, we simply aren't as up to date as we used to be when it comes to each other's personal lives. So it's like, I guess at this point in their lives, it's perfectly reasonable that somebody would bring a partner or like some kind of like personal connection in their lives. You know, you would just kind of assume that would happen. And I mean, realistically, that's pretty normal. Like, I don't have any red flags as of yet. Everything just seems to be like, okay, you know, we got a storytelling little campsite thing we do, and we got a new person there. And everybody decided to go this time somehow. That's kind of a weird lineup, but that's all right. Okay. Not that that's any excuse, but to not let the rest of us know, oh, by the way, I'm bringing someone you've never met before. Please be cool. But I think the rest of the group quickly got over it because they seldomly get the opportunity to meet new people. And seeing as this is Dennis we're talking about, I think the gang just instinctively made the decision to try to make Liz feel as welcome and included as possible. Maybe I would have felt the same if it weren't for one thing. Okay. What is the one thing? Let's find out right here. Sorry, I had to get some nicotine in me. I had talked to Dennis on the phone the night before about the trip and some other pointless stuff that's not even worth bringing up. And not only did he never hint at this Liz person or anyone else coming along, but he also sounded perfectly normal. But the Dennis we met that day seemed a little cagey and distraught to me. Maybe he was embarrassed by the whole ordeal to a point where he could hardly look at me or anyone else in the eyes. Maybe his girlfriend, if that's what she was, had forced him to invite her against his will or something. Something about it felt weird to me, but I kept it to myself, figuring it would be in everyone's best interest, especially Dennis's, to avoid asking uncomfortable questions and stirring unnecessary drama, which is the one thing we always tried to leave out of these trips, which I personally, just me, you guys, I can really appreciate that. Uh, if I'm going out on camping trips or something with some friends, like the last thing I want to do is sit and just like deal with a bunch of like crap or like talk about people in a crappy way. Like I'm just there to enjoy nature, enjoy some nice food cooked over the fire, you know, just have a good time. And I love camping, you know. I've gone on a few 5-day hikes and stuff with some friends of mine. It's been really good. Either way, here we go. We made some small talk, a quick inventory check to make sure we weren't missing any essentials, and then proceeded to walk on foot for a couple of hours or so before reaching a decent enough spot where we set up our tents right before nightfall. Here's what happened next. After getting a decent fire going and pouring ourselves out a few drinks, we figured the time had come to sit down and once again take turns sharing some creepy stories, which is what we're doing right now, just like we used to. I don't think everyone was particularly enthused by the idea. Maybe they felt like they had grown out of it. Still, you could tell everyone made an effort, to a varying degree, to humor one of the very traditions that our group somehow managed to keep alive after all these years. Even if the stories turned out to be awful, maybe they could still work as an icebreaker of sorts to help Liz better acclimate herself to the group. Margot, who sat on my left, went first. She recounted a mildly unsettling incident that happened to a friend of hers, who was a victim of a stalker for a couple of months after their initial interactions through dating apps fell through. Last, last she heard, an arrest had been made. But as a story, it didn't really bring anything new to the table, just some guy being a creep. The usual. Then came Brenda's turn, who was sitting to the left of Margot. She pretty much offered a recap of a film she thought was obscure enough for the rest of us not to pick on. Something that prompted Michael, the hardcore horror enthusiast of the group, to lightly over grill her over when she was done. So we got the horror enthusiast. Something tells me his stories aren't that good either based on the descriptions though. Based on what I've heard, nobody's got anything like too good to add. Okay. Michael. There we go. For a second, okay, lightly grill her over when she was done. I remembered a time when calling her out in a similar fashion would have made her pack her things on the spot and leave. And for a second, I worried that Michael's harmless jab might have been sufficient to ruin the mood. If not, the entire weekend. Jesus. Damn, Michael, how mean was he? Like, it doesn't really give us any description as to what he said, but Jesus Christ. I mean, he was pissed, this guy. To my surprise, Brenda chuckled, raised her glass of gin and tonic in the air, and said, "All right, you got me," before drowning her drink, pretending that was an actual punishment for her deception. So it seems like, you know, didn't work out. She just did a recap of a film. Michael called her out because he just knows this shit. Uh, let's go. Let's see. Why don't you go next then? Let's see what you got, nerd. Or should I do a voice? Nah, she playfully said. Michael, who sat to my right, grinned as he straightened himself and rolled up his sleeves, as he was the type of person to never waste an opportunity to terrorize his friends, especially when he had their full attention and their consent to do so. There was a lot of ooh and like a lot of like especially and ooh and ah. I like that. I like that. That's pretty good. Before he could proceed with whatever demented story he had cooked up for just that occasion, Dennis chimed in. Actually, would you mind if she goes first? He asked, without either looking at Michael or motioning for someone in particular, although we naturally inferred he meant Liz. She's got something she needs to share with everyone. Michael grimaced before quickly shooting back. Okay, sure. But even though I could tell he was slightly bummed for having the spotlight snatched away from him, the way Dennis had worded his request definitely got Michael and everyone else's attention. Before I continue, and just to help you visualize the setting, this is how we were all seated in relation to each other, clockwise and starting from the top. You had Liz, who sat right across from me, Dennis to her left, then Leanne, myself, Margot, and finally, Michael and Brenda. These are different orders because I fucked up the quote, but it's all right. But I do enjoy the setting here. We've got a campfire. We've got like everybody's coming out to camping. Everybody knows each other. We have like everybody kind of being introduced. I like the fact that they're kind of setting the stage for us a lot better than the previous story. It's giving me more like immersive vibes. Like I'm more like into it. I can imagine the crickets and I can imagine the breeze and the fire, Like it's a little more there for me and a little bit more imagery for me in this one. Okay. Let's hear this story then, Michael said, almost in a challenging tone, which prompted Lillian to tug at his shirt and take a look and shoot him a look. Liz shook her head as soon as she heard his words, her eyes fixated on the crackling fire pit between myself and her. It's not a story. It's a dream I had. Or a nightmare, rather, I guess. Hope that's all right. Michael looked at me and rolled his eyes, upset she could use the dream excuse to make up as many horrifying details as she wanted just to spice up her own tale. Sensing his reaction, Leanne elbowed him gently as a reminder not to be an ass. Everyone else gave her the okay in a heartbeat, but you could tell the mood had shifted a little, no doubt in response to Liz's serious demeanor, as well as the prospect that She could be on the verge of unloading some very personal things onto a group of strangers instead of sharing a simple, silly, scary story. She took a deep breath and began. Okay. Okay, I really enjoy the way they're setting this up. That is a really good setup. I mean, we're only one quarter of the way through here. We're just getting started. But the way that they just built it, you know what I mean? The way they built it is just exceptional. Honestly, I was really impressed with that. No wonder this is at the top of No Sleep right now. It's number one at the moment. And guys, don't be reading it. Let me read it to you. I'm here for a reason because if you read it, you might skip ahead. All right, guys. There's this scream, but it's a scream unlike any I've ever heard in my life. I know deep down that it's coming from someone, somewhere nearby, but there's something just really off and absolutely terrifying about it. She crossed her arms and squeezed them for comfort, her eyes still glued to the fire as if looking for the right words within its flames to help her illustrate this nightmare. I've never heard anything like it in real life, or in any movies or games whatsoever. It's not really calling for help, it's just a visceral cry of pure horror and pain. And the reason it terrifies me to my core is because my mind can't even begin to imagine what could be causing this indescribable amount of agony. And the sound, she raised her hands and placed them on her face, briefly covering most of her features except her eyes. It's so loud that it rattles my bones, and it doesn't stop. It just keeps going, and I'm just frozen in place, unsure of what to do. And I know this person needs help, but I can't find the courage to go look for them because I'm afraid of what I'll find. Afraid I'll see a scene so horrible my own brain won't be able to rationalize. I'm so afraid and sick to my stomach, more than I've ever been in my entire life, of finding out what's causing that scream. But the more it goes on, she began to shake her head, very slightly. The more it goes on, the more I start to wonder how it can possibly still be going. I know that it's a dream, but something about it feels real. And it doesn't make sense to me that this person hasn't died, or at the very least passed out or destroyed their vocal cords. And it's such a prolonged and pain cry caused by whatever is being done by them. And I think that's when it hits me. She paused for a few seconds, her lips quivering. Maybe it's not a person at all. Maybe it's something trying to lure me in by mimicking the exaggerated sound of someone in need. Or maybe it really is a person whose impossible pain is being inflicted at the hands of someone or something. She took a deep breath and slowly let out a big sigh. Damn, lady, you wound up. She is wound up, you guys. She I don't think this is a story. I think she just feels this. I think to her this is true, you know? It's okay. Here we go. For a moment, it seemed as if she was actually getting teary-eyed. I know she said this was a dream, but I don't think anyone present was actually buying her story. Though it was hard to ignore her commitment to the bit and how palpable her emotions felt, she continued. So, I decide to go look for the source of the scream. I can't really explain it, but it's like a flip is switched in my brain. It's just something I know I have to do, something I'm supposed to do. Maybe I've finally fallen for its spell, and I'm being led to my demise. Or maybe something in me decided that, at the very least, I should check to see if someone needed my help. Or maybe morbid curiosity won over. Maybe a combination of those seems more likely, since, I mean, I'm not really that good of a person. The corner of her mouth slightly twisted itself into a smirk. Ugh. I don't think anyone else caught it. And she quickly pressed on. Yeah, apparently she's not that good of a person. Here's my call. The story she tells is something she's passing on. It is a very intentional, like, oh, I'm passing this on to you so I don't have the trauma anymore type of thing. I mean, how many times have we seen that in media? I mean, for example, let's take a look. Smile. You're passing on trauma in those movies, Smile 1 and Smile 2. I'd say Smile 1's the only good one out of the two, but that's a good example. If anybody's ever seen that movie in the chat, um, it's like one of those films where, like, you have this trauma. It's like a horror film that's passed on each time somebody, like, offs themselves in front of another, like, things like that. And, there you go. Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. So I start walking through the woods. It's nighttime, and I can barely see anything, to a point where I think to myself, I won't actually be able to get anywhere. It's a comforting thought, as much as I hate to admit it, because it would mean that I wouldn't have to face whatever's out there all on my own. All on my own? I like that. And then I realized that I don't really need to see. Not when that goddamn scream seems to be pulling me towards it, growing ever louder whenever I happen to take one more step towards its direction. Next thing I know, I've arrived at a clearing, and there's a small black cabin in front of me. The door is wide open, or rather, broken off its hinges, as if whatever's inside has been waiting for me all this time. And even though it's very dark out, can I can tell that not a single window has any glass panes in it. Whether they were smashed before my arrival or never there to begin with, I don't know, but I don't like it. Why? Lillian asked in a low, hushed tone, a clear indicator that she was genuinely terrified by what she was hearing, as if the way she was latching onto Michael wasn't enough of a giveaway. So she's just like holding on to this dude. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here so I got more room. Liz didn't seem bothered by what was, surprisingly, the first interjection someone had made since she started recounting her nightmare. In fact, she was so unbothered and unsurprised that her vacant stare didn't even meet Lillian's. Not even for a brief second. Just to acknowledge her. Damn. So she just didn't even look at her when she said that shit. Jesus. Why? She said, why, Lillian? Because the door is wide open and the windows aren't shut. Whatever's happening inside, whoever's responsible wants me to know that they have all the power, all of the control, and that there's no escape from what looks to be, at first glance, just an unguarded cabin with no one in it. I know that I could be walking into a trap. I know that I won't be able to leave from the moment I step inside. And I know that I could be moments away from seeing or experiencing pain and suffering on a level that shouldn't be possible. But I've come this far. And the other thing is, the scream has become so impossibly and unbearably loud. The closer I got to the cabin, I just wanted to stop. No matter what it takes, even if it means I have to walk in and take its place. A part of me is very much against this idea of proceeding, but my body continues to move all on its own, because it, too, knows that all of this has to stop, and that it won't stop until I see this thing to the end, whatever this is. So I walk in, and something happens the moment my foot crosses the entrance's threshold. She paused. That ungodly, piercing sound just disappears. Like that. like something just erased it from existence, gone without a trace, not even leaving a single echo behind. I should feel relieved, but the deafening silence that replaced it might honestly be even worse. It's so heavy and so absolute that I thought my own hearing might have been taken away as well, even by either by the scream or whatever snuffed it out. It's bad either way, because deep in my gut, I know that whatever's inside the house knows that I'm here. And canceling out all other sounds is its sick way of rolling out the red carpet just for me. I know I should just leave, and I probably could if I wanted to. When I turn, the door is still there. When I turn around, sorry, fuck. When I turn around, the door is still there, open, letting a very faint breeze in. I even take a step towards it and realize no unseen force is keeping me in place. I could just go and disappear into the night. Why don't she leave? Because. Let's see. So, why don't you? Margot asked. Liz shrugged. Maybe the screams would return, although I don't think they would. Then why? Margot insisted, visibly upset that someone who wasn't even her friend would put herself in danger in a scenario that wasn't even real to begin with. Because I need to know what brought me to this place. And for what purpose? I need to know what happened here. Don't you? Ugh. Ugh. No one answered. I scanned everyone's faces as best I could. The girls were evidently terrified, while Michael was so absorbed in leaning forward that it was a miracle he hadn't fallen face first into the fire pit. Just yet. Dennis, on the other hand, barely seemed like he was there or paying attention. Good job, Dennis. I mean, he's just taking it all in, guys. He's just. Uh, uh, uh. He's taking it all in. Where are we at? The fact of the matter is, most of us were invested in her story by this point. It's only natural that we wanted to see it through. Hell, I would have been the first to laugh my ass off if all of it had been leading up to a terrible joke, or if she just hit us with a to be continued before revealing that she's a screenwriter who's actually fleshing out the story. If only. Okay, so you walked in and, Michael said, eager for Liz to continue and completely oblivious to how unsettled his own girlfriend was by his side. Liz didn't seem to care either. I walk in, and I know deep down that nothing could prepare me for what's waiting for me inside. I keep on walking until I reach the entrance to the only room that seems to have a faint source of light coming from it. There aren't any doors in the house, but I don't bother peering into any of the other pitch black rooms because I know there's nothing there. The room with the light is the one where I'm awaited. Oh. I gotta hit the bathroom. It looks like we're halfway through. Do not read the story without me. Just wait a moment. I will return very shortly. Just, there you go. I'm on my way back to the story. I'll be there in a minute. In just a minute. Okay. All right. Where are we at? All right. I keep my eyes glued to the floor, wanting to delay facing the inevitable for as long as possible. I can't make out anything other than my feet and the old, wet floorboard, but I can feel it in the air. That something's here with me, maybe just out of my field of vision, waiting for me to look up and finally acknowledge it. She paused, and no one dared to make a sound. And then I looked, and before I could even begin to process what I was seeing, before I could let out a scream or react in any way, I felt my mind shatter and crumble almost immediately from whatever it was that I saw and smelled in that room. I can't really describe the scene to you. Only my primal sense of revulsion, which scrubbed off the impossibly abominable, unspeakable images from the very fabric of my being. But some traces remain. Sorry. I held that in as long as I could, you guys. I really did. Oh, jeez. She lowered her head, looking down at her lap. If I try real hard, I can see the room and feel on some level that I know what's in there and I know what happened, but I can't bring myself to put it into actual words. The mere thought of attempting to do so feels like the most depraved thing a normal person could ever think of doing, and it sickens me. She gently rubbed her face. Oh dear, no, 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 no. The TV. There we go. My TV turned on. um, she gently rubbed her face, but I couldn't tell whether she was actually wiping some tears. I thought she was done, but she kept going. But there's one thing I remember, one detail I can see even now, clear as day. Everyone braced for the impact of what should be the final reveal or twist or whatever. Liz proceeded, only this time with a stare that seemed strangely vacant and utterly lost in the horror she was recalling. There's a man in the room. I can see his face, and his abhorrent expression is all I need to know that he's the one responsible for whatever horrors took place inside the cabin. He is the one who caused all that impossible screaming. He is the one who made me come all the way out here for some sinister reason. And I know who he is. I recognize him. She paused again, having become slightly more agitated over the course of the last stretch of her story. I don't know if I felt sorry for her and wanted for her to just be done with it for her own sake, or if I'd grown impatient with how she seemed to just be edging us. Either way, I blurted out, "Who is it?" And she immediately shot me a piercing look. I'm not sure if this was the first time she actually looked at someone directly from the moment she began telling her story, but something about the unrelenting intensity in her unwavering, unexpected stare made me deeply uneasy. A small gust of wind blew in, pushing the dying fire out of its misery. "It's you," she said, with a voice that trembled not with fear, but with a profound, venomous ire. My stomach dropped, and I felt my entire body suddenly become coated in cold sweat. "It's you," she repeated with an increased level of repulsion that only I, the person on the receiving end of such vile and imaginary accusations, could perceive. One by one, everyone else slowly turned their heads towards me. For a moment, I genuinely thought that surely one of them was bound to break character sooner or later and burst out laughing on how they had succeeded in both creeping me out and pranking me. But no one said a word, and I couldn't even think of anything to say. As I tried to make as I tried to make sense of what had just happened, my brain slowed down for a second there. Did y'all hear that? I said, we just sat there in silence. Okay. Margot eventually got up, and she said she was going to go to sleep, which prompted everyone else but Liz to do the same. When Brenda asked Liz if she was okay, she said that she was, but that she'd stay put for a little longer before going to her own tent. They all just left, the two of us there, without addressing me directly or commenting on Liz's dream or my own involvement in it. According to her, even without the fire between us as a light source, I could tell her gaze was still fixed on me. The more I tried to make sense of the situation, the angrier I got. But I tried not to let it show. Why would they go through all this trouble to make me feel like shit? And even recruit the help of someone none of us really know just to make me feel even more uncomfortable? I understand wanting to pull a prank, but this was beyond anything anyone from our group had ever thought of pulling. Sorry, dude. This was just on a whole nother level. I couldn't even think of what I could have possibly done to anyone that could begin to justify this twisted setup. But the absolute worst part is no one being bothered to let me in on the joke, even after its punchline, and being perfectly content with leaving me in the dark, figuratively and literally, even if it meant completely destroying my disposition for the rest of the weekend. This guy, I mean, even since the beginning, this is twice now. He just assumes the weekend is going to be ruined by something. This is twice. Like, I'm going to be honest. Maybe you just had a bad week. I don't know. Why would they do this to me? And how could every single person in our group go along with it with such a straight face? I was angry, yeah, but also deeply hurt by the insensitivity and senselessness of it all. But I didn't say a single word. If that's what they wanted, I wouldn't be giving them a satisfaction so easily. I briefly stared back at Liz, who still sat on her end of the makeshift log, looking right back at me. She had nothing else to say. Neither did I. So I got up, went back to my tent, and went to bed. I changed the words. Went back to my tent without saying a word. For all I know, she sat there for the entire night. Okay, so that was a pretty cool setup here. I really enjoy that. I'm going to go ahead before we get to the next to final part here. We're getting kind of further in. I'm going to go ahead and send the stream to a few people. Guys, what's my YouTube channel? I'm live right now. Why is it not showing? Oh, there I am. Reading spooky stories. Copy link. I'm sending it out before we keep going. I know where we are. We're right here. I got it right there. I'm sending it to like everybody I know. Here we go. Who else? Who else? Oh, yep. There we go. We're getting back to it. I think I sent it to everybody who I need to. One more, two more. 3 more. Where's my group chat? There it is. Bam. 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 All right. So we're back to it. So, I mean, just to recap, if anybody's been away, they're going out. They go out for spooky stories and camping as a group. They bring a new person. Bro's uncomfortable. She tells a story. Horrible person causes all these screams. She says it's him. They are waking up the next morning because he awkwardly walks back to his tent and goes to bed. I would argue that, my God, somebody should have said something like, LOL, what the fuck? I don't know. I'm not sure if I actually got any sleep because by this time, I came to. By the time I came to, I was still furious, as I was the night before. As I was. Oh, wow, Jesus! Let me restart here. It was almost 10 a.m. When I checked my phone. We hadn't agreed on a set hour to wake up or anything. Usually, we just allowed ourselves to sleep for as long as we wanted. Then we'd cook breakfast or lunch, depending on the time of day, and eat the meal before carrying on with our loose schedule. I couldn't hear any kind of noise outside, which got me thinking I was probably the first person to wake up. I figured I might as well go for a morning walk and attempt to clear my thoughts, knowing it probably wouldn't be of much help. Well, after last night, yeah, I'd be going on a fucking morning drive back to my home, because fuck that. She's making all your friends hate you. You might as well get the hell out of there before it's too late, buddy. Seems like this is a red flag above all. Um, I couldn't hear any kind of noise outside, which got me thinking I was probably the first person to wake up. I figured I might as well go for a morning walk and attempt to clear my thoughts, knowing it probably wouldn't be of much help. Maybe upon my return, they'd finally come clean about the whole ordeal, and even though the part of me who undoubtedly still resented them all for it, I still couldn't spend the rest of the day being pissed. I fucked that sentence up. When I unzipped my tent to step outside, my heart stopped nearly with the scene I was met with, and for the second day in a row, I was at a loss for words. Not only was everyone else already up and about, they were all just standing there with their gear and bags fully packed and ready to go. I don't know what bothered me the most. The fact that they had somehow gotten up, got dressed, and packed their things without me taking notice, or that they were all just standing there silently staring me down and sort of visibly annoyed, as if they'd all been waiting for ages for me to do the same. With the exception of Liz, who stood the furthest away from my tent. Everyone else was facing my direction. What the Do you hear this? Yeah? I asked, with my head posting my head outside the tent. We're going somewhere, Michael said. Yeah? I added, frustrated, but also hoping to elicit a similar response from any of them. Yes, Lillian replied. We're just waiting on you. Cool, I said. You can wait. Dude, what? I zipped up my tent and tried to gather my thoughts before actually starting to pack my bags. They weren't chatting outside or making small talk of any kind from what I could hear, but I did get the feeling they were circling me, as if wanting to ensure that I wouldn't be making a sneaky exit of some sort without them noticing. Maybe it was just my imagination. I sincerely doubt that. Dude, are you serious? What? But if they were hell bent on keeping up the charade, so would I. Charade? It took me a few good minutes to get all my stuff together, but I didn't exactly rush it either. No one bothered to ask if I needed or wanted any help, which made everything all the more awkward, as I was the only one making any kind of noise while they just waited in silence without doing or saying anything. But I welcomed that awkwardness and did what I could to prolong it because I wanted to make them feel as uncomfortable as I was. They didn't seem phased, but two can play at that game, and I'm not one to quit. This is like that one guy who gets in a cult. Like, he's like that one guy who gets in a cult and is like, "Oh, I know I'm in a cult, so I'm not gonna fall for it." But, like, here's the thing, dude, you're playing along with everybody else, and maybe everybody else is thinking the same exact thing, you know? So, maybe keep that in mind, buddy. Once I strapped my backpack on, I slapped the side of my legs to let them know I was ready to go. Okay. Liz briefly looked in my direction without actually meeting my eyes this time. And when she started walking, and then she started walking. One by one, the others turned away from me and began following her steps without a word. That is odd. They were probably counting on me inquiring where we were headed or something, so I didn't. I just followed along as the last person of the group, all the way in the back. It was around 10:40 a.m. when we got moving, and by noon we were still walking. Whenever I stopped to drink some water or tie my shoelaces, they would also stop, seemingly in unison, regardless of the distance between myself and the rest of them. After a further 30 minutes of walking, I removed my backpack and sat down on a nearby overgrown tree stump, not giving a rat's ass as to whether everyone else would just keep on walking without me. Much to my dismay, they immediately halted their pace and turned towards me, some facing me completely, others side eyeing me. All but Liz, who kept her back towards me. I let out a small scoff, inaudible to anyone else but me, and I chuckled. I rubbed my hands together, stretched my legs, and then reached my bag for some snacks, which I ate without a single care in the world. I was delighted not by their taste, but by how much my actions were likely pissing them off to some extent. I gave no signs that I'd been getting up on my feet anytime soon to proceed with the hike. Okay, so he's just trying to like slow play him really hard, just trying to sit back and be like, hey, screw you guys. I'm sitting on a log having some snacks. I don't care. I don't care. Whatever. I kind of like the vibe. I'm cool with that. I mean, they're clearly possessed in some way or something's weird. Like, I think that the trap that I called earlier was definitely wrong, though. I think I said that her story would like affect them in some way that was completely different than this. This is crazy. Okay. Brenda, the closest to me, spoke up. You can do that later, she said. You can do that later, she said. We'll do that. I didn't look at her. Instead, I slowly, loudly crumpled in my hand the foil packaging of the snack bars I'd just eaten. After putting them away somewhere in my backpack so as not to litter in the area, I brought my right hand and cupped up my ear towards her, pretending that I didn't hear what she said. A long pause followed. I said you can do that later. Where? When? I asked. No answer from her or anyone. I shrugged and pulled out another protein bar, and for the first time since we left our camp, I sensed actual hostility coming from the people I thought were my friends. Before I could tear up the package, I noticed that Dennis had started walking back towards me. And I didn't realize until after the fact that my hand instinctively went for the pocket knife I kept in one of my front pockets. Oh shit. Oh shit. I was already on my feet by the time he reached me. We have to go, he said. Go fucking where? I shot back, loudly enunciating each word right in his face. Brenda, Margot, Michael, and Lillian took a noticeable step towards me. I'd done my due diligence a few days prior to the trip and looked up what sort of hiking trails and points of interest might exist in the area, because I knew no one ever bothered to really look at those things in depth. I always did my homework more out of curiosity than anyone else, because I figured it would be cool to actually have places to visit, to be the one that actually, hey, found them for the rest of everyone else. I get it. Okay, so he likes to know the area. He likes to like be aware of the general vicinity. I mean, not only is that more fun for people, but it's a lot safer as well. Like you'll know the ways out. But whatever path Liz was walking on was not one I was familiar with. Even after looking at the handful of screenshots I'd saved on my phone, I still couldn't tell where we could possibly be headed. This was all no doubt part of their big prank, whatever it entailed, and I was done playing along. Whatever this was, it wasn't worth the time or the effort or the incessant gnawing sensation I had in the pit of my stomach. I assume he's like really hungry at this point. They took another step. "We're almost there," Dennis whispered, as his warm morning breath filled up my nostrils. "You will see." I used my tongue to dislodge some bits and pieces of the protein bar stuck to my teeth, right before spitting the load right all over Dennis's. You what? You what over his shoulder? You spit your load over his shoulder? Okay. Whatever you say, buddy. Barely missing his face. Okay. Well, that's just, I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. Okay. Okay. Nah. I said, nah. Nah, mate. Nah. I ain't doing that. Nah. Okay. I looked into his eyes and could swear that he was just about to take a swing at me. But before I could take any measures to protect myself, a sudden, loud noise completely derailed my train of thought. At first, I thought one of them had tripped over and hurt themselves as they were making their way towards me, but one quick look at the rest of the group and I could tell they weren't the ones making the sound. That awful, distant sound of someone screaming as if their guts were slowly being pulled out while the soles of their feet were set ablaze. What? The awful, distant sound of someone screaming as if their guts were being pulled out while the soles of their feet were being set ablaze? Liz's story and all of its eerie details immediately flooded my mind. What the fuck? I don't know how they pulled it off or how many more people they got to tag along, but I couldn't stand how it was making me feel. I wanted to shout at them just to turn it off, but that god awful scream sounded so real, so desperate, and so goddamn loud that I could barely form a coherent thought. Not one of them seemed bothered or distressed by it, and I could just tell from the way my insides were doing backflips and the way my own brain was firing off all sorts of signals that I was hearing couldn't possibly be a recording of some sort. It was real. Someone needs our help. Someone needs our help. We have to go, Margot said. I looked at her. Someone I thought I knew, whom I'd known for a number of years, but I didn't recognize her. None of them. Not really. Not completely. Not anymore. Then I looked at Liz, who remained distant enough from where I stood that I couldn't quite make out her features. I'm not entirely sure what happened next. I remember bolting in the opposite direction. I didn't even think of grabbing my backpack. I just ran out of there as fast as I could. I must have looked back a single time as soon as I took off, and I noticed that for some strange reason, not one of them had begun pursuing me. They all just stood exactly where I'd left them. But the same thing couldn't be said for the scream, which loudly threatened to follow me to the ends of the earth. My body was on autopilot while my brain kept thinking of the worst possible shit that could have happened to me in the middle of nowhere. If for some reason I couldn't find my way back. I ran until my legs almost gave out. By that point, I was nearly out of the woods. The sky was clear, my phone was still working, and I was finally starting to recognize some local landmarks. And while my ears were still loudly buzzing, the scream itself had dissipated at some point without me noticing. Despite being mentally scared, I was physically unharmed. I reached the parking lot. Oh, mentally scared, mentally scarred. Despite being mentally scarred, I was physically unharmed. I reached the parking lot where we had left our cars, and after briefly inspecting everyone's rides from the outside, especially the one that belonged to Dennis, which Liz also rode in, and realizing they wouldn't be providing me with any answers, I got in my car and drove home. Okay, so I mean, realistically, we kind of got the story, but we'll finish this last paragraph and that'll be it. And I guess we'll call it for today. Let me finish this a little bit. I held my phone in my hand during the entire drive, hoping for a text message or a call from any of them that would let me know they really did get me, but no one ever came. Not a single one. I have, however, gotten calls and texts from friends and relatives. They haven't heard from them, and their prospective places of employment are also inquiring about their unplanned and prolonged absence. Okay, so these people really are missing. I wanted to believe that we were, I mean, honestly, the end of this story is just like blah, blah, blah. I think, they're just traumatized. That was pretty good. I think we're gonna say that was it. That was pretty good. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you like this window at the end. See you later, guys.